Doing. All right, folks, let's talk about this story that we covered here in June. And that was a young man, Tapiwa Musonza, who was attacked and repeatedly tased by Washington, D.C. Metro Police. Now, after a bystander posted the video on social media, the charges against Musonza were dropped, and the police launched an internal investigation into the case. Well, he has now filed a lawsuit, and he and his attorney, Yaida Ford, joins us now to tell his story. So first of all, I hope I pronounced both of your names correct. And so if I did, my apologies. And so how are both of you doing?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Glad to have you here. And so, first of all, Tapiwa, walk us through. I mean, what happened? I mean, we remember this case, but of course, we're going to show the video as well. But were you just simply walking by and seeing the police where they had stopped these several African American young boys? Take us through what happened on that June day.
Sure. Before I do, I just want to take time to pay my respects to the the late congressman's family. I hope God protects them and gives them the grace that they need to get over this. With regards to what happened to me on June 22nd, I was on my way home on U Street, Cardozo Station, and I was on the platform. Suddenly, I see an officer chasing a young man. At that point, I did not know the young man's age. Chasing him down the platform, he tackled the young man, put him on the ground, restrained him for an extended period of time. When you actually look at, in retrospect, when I look at the body mass of the young boy and the body mass of the officer, I don't even think that was a necessary way to restrain a minor. As the events continued rolling out, the officer continued to have his knee on the young man's back. I approached the officer and asked the officer, is this how you treat young men? At that time, I did not know the young man's age. Is this how you treat young men? And the officer, at that point, he replied, you know, this is an open investigation or something like that. At that point in time, then I asked him, can you please put the young boy on the bench so that you could treat him with a bit of dignity? At that point on, he complied with my request. He put the young man on the bench. I proceeded to ask the officer to ask the young man his age, because I wanted to make sure that, that young man was conscious enough and I think wise enough to understand the ramifications of what actually is happening in that moment and how it will affect him going forward in life. At that point in time, the officer did ask the young man, and he found out that officer was 14-year-old, and according to the United States law, that is a minor. And minors here, before you can do anything regards with legal affairs, you need a guardian to be present, and there was no present guardian. So I came in as a standby guardian in that moment, because here in the African community, you have to stand by the young man, regardless of where that young man is born. We stand by our own. We stand by who we believe that every man has or every woman has a right to raise up a child for the right way, and showing them what is right in life. So I took that responsibility on me.
Here's what was crazy. We played the video, and it seemed as if the initial officers were talking with you.
Yes.
There were no issues. There were no problem. And all of a sudden, this other officer who was not there comes up and just bum rushes the scene and completely disrupts everything.
Yes. So I was in the process of de-escalating the situation, because, you know, I'm a peace-loving person. I believe in nonviolence. So I was in the process of engaging the officer so that he could de-escalate the situation. Then that third officer came in without the context or the prior knowledge. He wasn't even the first responder, so he didn't have I wouldn't say, I don't know about jurisdiction, but he just didn't have the enough information to act on. At that point in time, I asked the officer, you know, why am I being pushed? He continued to respond, this is an open investigation. He pushed me again. There was someone behind me. There was no way I was actually going to move, even if I had the option to. And I continued to let him know this is open space. Like, I'm a metro rider. I've put in money into the metro system, so just by rights alone, I'm entitled to be in that position at that point in time. Then that officer continued to push me. He pulled out his taser. Before I could even respond, he tasers me. when the first taser hit, I was in a state of shock because I knew I did not do anything wrong because I was, at any point in time, I was not threatening. The first officers who were the first responders were on the other side of the platform. So if I was a threat or in any way, they could have let me know in that position in time. And I would have respected their orders because I did not have the context to question what they were doing. But I was more worried about the welfare of that young man, and which is I continually asked about the welfare of the young man. Nothing about the investigation, nothing why the officers or judging them of what is right or wrong. I just said, can you please treat the young man humanely? That's all. And that's just by me exercising one of the oldest forms of humanity, which is compassion. I was tased. So I'm at a point where I now confuse as what is right or wrong in our community, be it black or white, but this continually seems to be happening to black people. So as an African immigrant, I need to understand, maybe I didn't get the memo that things have changed in here. So I need to understand. That's why I'm asking for justice. It's not a matter of like, oh, I want, yes, I want to be, because if someone did wrong and someone has to pay. Yes, I'm not going to deny that fact. Someone has to pay. But we need to know as a society that this is how black people are going to be treated going forward. So that we know if this is where we put dollars here. We pay money. I'm an entrepreneur. Prior to even getting to my cognitive damages, I was an entrepreneur. I provided intellectual capital to this nation. And this is how we treat people. So when in business, one thing I love, there's rankings. There's rankings of ease of doing business. And as an entrepreneur, the ease of doing business for me was escalated to a point where I cannot do business because I have cognitive injuries now. So I don't know if America is honest enough to rank itself according to black people continually to getting abused, whereby we provide also intellectual capital to this nation. So we need to be respected. Unfortunately, you're not respecting us. I have proof. I have intellectual property that I've contributed to this society. So this is how we treat the highest level of intellect. Contribution to humanity, you tase me. So I need some form of understanding what I need to be doing as a human. If I'm doing good, I've worked hard.
Yaida.
I've worked hard.
Yes.
Ms. Ford, you said that, first of all, the charges were dropped. It got lots of attention. Any apology? Anything from Metro Police? And when did you file the suit, and what kind of damages are you seeking?
The suit was filed up September 17th, and we are seeking compensatory damages for the pain and suffering, punitive damages. Obviously, we're still tolling damages because Mr. Tapiwa's, the nature of the injuries, the extent of that is actually unknown at this time. When he used the word cognitive, that's referring to memory and concentration, the ability to perceive and understand information. He's being tested, in the process of being tested now, and the injuries are substantial.
First of all, have you talked to the young men? Have you communicated with them since this happened?
Are you asking me, have I communicated with the young men who were being arrested? The young men that he interfered with?
Yeah. First of all, either one of you.
I have not made contact with the families of those young men. I understand they have reached out to Mr. Musonza via social media to, thank him for intervening, but no direct contact has been made since the lawsuit has been filed.
Sir, have you?
I have not. So, one thing why I haven't reached out immediately is because, what else can I say to that young man? How do I console him? Because, you see, I may be mature enough to get over this and say, okay, you know what, I need to move on with my life. I need to figure out. But there's a young man who's just starting his career. Yeah, the charges were dropped there, but that trauma, who's going to address that? How do I even console him and tell him, okay, I've taken up the burden, but how is he going to move forward? He's just starting his life. If I wasn't there, he would have had an arrest record.
Right.
And here in America, this is an open secret. Like, black people have a hard time here. It's not me talking negative around anyone. You are going to cover a story about someone who just shot in their home. Like, think about that. Someone in their home. So it's like we cannot continue to hide around issues that are affecting our community. I personally have took a stance, say I'm not going to do business here. That's my stance.
Well, first off, let me say this here. We certainly appreciate what you did. We appreciate the sister who recorded that video as well. You're absolutely right. We can't say it takes a village to raise a child if the village does not step up when those kids are targeted. And in fact, when we covered this story, the cops didn't even know if those young men were involved in something that took place a distance away. Well, they were clearly targeted but simply because they were black. And so we thank both of you very much. Please keep us up to date on what happens with this suit, with this case, because we certainly want to keep our folks, Roland Unfiltered, our folks who watch it, informed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.